Ashley. It is our third bake for Cookie Week, and I'm really excited to be making Cowboy cookies. If you would like to read more about this recipe, check out my blog. But this is my signature bake for this theme. My weeks are only 4 days long, but I'm still treating it as a theme week in the Great American Baking Show. So I decided that my signature thing would be to cook with cast iron. So I grew up in a small town in Texas, so did my husband, and we both grew up watching our moms and our grandmothers cook with cast iron. And we love doing that. We cook, I'm gonna say like 80 to 90% of our dinners and our meals at home in cast iron. So I thought it would be a fun little twist to share some of those things with you. So just to rehash what all I've got planned, the first bake of each week is using some type of store-bought kit or mix or ready-made crust or something like that. The second bake for each theme is a family favorite or something that I have always wanted to try after watching the baking show. And the third is going to be my cast iron signature. So the first thing I'm gonna do today is go ahead and grease my cast iron skillet. Now, after we cook with our cast iron skillet, we always wash it, scrub it, usually don't use any soap unless I just absolutely have to. And then we dry it by hand, put it on the cooktop and heat it to make sure that it dries completely. And then we put a little bit of oil in, wipe it down and let it sit like that. That's seasoning it for the next time we use it. But I just washed it this afternoon and I knew that we were gonna be doing this together. So I waited, and I'm just using a little bit of Crisco on a paper towel and wiping down the bottom and the sides to make sure that my cookie will not stick. All right, perfect. Now this recipe is one of those that uses everything but the kitchen sink, and I would not be surprised if this one even used that. You can put anything in here that you want. It is an oatmeal cookie, but you can just build it from there. So our recipe, this is one of those wonderful recipes that's handwritten on a sheet of paper from my grandma's house, my Mema, and I just remember her making this with whatever she had handy, and it always turned out amazing. So I've started with a half a cup of Crisco. I've already put that in the bowl, and I'm also gonna do a half a cup of unsalted butter. I also make this with margarine. Again, whatever you have in the refrigerator that you need or want to use up is perfect. And I think you saw I just washed my hands. I'm gonna get in here and mix this up by hand. I think that's the best way to get this particular recipe put together. I'm adding to my shortening 3 cups of old-fashioned oats, not the quick cook, because they give you a different texture. So you want the old-fashioned, little bit heartier cut of oats. I'm gonna add to that 2 eggs, and I've been letting my eggs sit out. You want your eggs to be at room temperature. And little interesting fact, I think, from what I remember, we refrigerate our eggs here in America, but most countries don't do that. So I don't know how or why we started doing that, but I think it's got to do with the preservation and the food safety standards here in America. But let your eggs come to room temperature before you bake with them. I always crack them in something else first to make sure that there's nothing wrong. In my almost 50 years of baking, I think only 2 or 3 times have there been a time when there was something in the egg, like part of the egg had started developing or the egg had gone bad or something like that. So both of these look great. Very nice. All right, now to that we are gonna add 3/4 cup of brown sugar and 3/4 cup of plain white sugar. I need 1 teaspoon of baking soda. And I just use the corner of the box here to level off my teaspoon and put that in. You can tell I'm making a nice stack of dishes to wash. Having everything pre-measured, this is called mise en place. And yes, I butcher French when I speak it with my Texas twang, but it basically means having everything in its place and ready so that when you start putting your recipe together, you don't have to stop and run back to the store or hunt for something in the pantry. All right, so there's a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, a pinch of salt. So I'm just gonna pour a little bit in my hand and give a pinch. And just throw the rest over your shoulder. All right, 1½ cups of flour. And now the fun part. So this is the base recipe. This is just your straight oatmeal cookie. From here you can add whatever you like best. I am going to add 3/4 cup of toasted pecans. I chopped these up pretty fine and I toasted them at 300 for about 10 minutes. They don't have to be, they can just be lightly toasted. You don't have to put them in too long, but I do think that toasting them before you put them in the cookie dough really brings out the flavor. All right, and then I'm doing 1/4 cup each of raisins and craisins or dried cranberries, and 1/4 cup of diced dates. If you've never cooked with dates, give it a try. I had never cooked with them. In my mind, I thought they were something kind of gross. And then my daughter went to cooking camp and they used dates in several recipes, and she came home and wanted to make those recipes. And I have to tell you, they're phenomenal and they're a wonderful sweetener and they add a great texture to your recipes. So this is where I'm going to stop for today. A couple of other things I set out just to remember to mention them. I think you could do about a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. You could do 1/2 to a teaspoon of vanilla. And I think you could really do 1/2 to 3/4 cup of chocolate chips. All of those things would enhance and taste great in the recipe. I just decided that this is where I'm stopping today, and I'm going to be making cinnamon rolls in a couple days, so I didn't want to make this taste too cinnamony. And my daughter is going to be here to help me eat this, and she doesn't love chocolate chips, so I thought that that was a really good place to stop for today. Okay, so now I'm just going to go through and mix this up really well. The shortening and the butter and the eggs are really our only source of moisture. So it takes a little bit to get this mixed really well. And that's why I like just using my hand. I've done it with a spoon and it doesn't work as well. So you could use the mixer. There's nothing, it's not gonna hurt the cookie batter to do it that way. I just personally thought it would be fun for our video if I did this facing you instead of behind me on the mixer. So I'm going to confess that I made this once already for my baking challenge, and I have a hard time with my oven. It is a beautiful piece of machinery, but it is difficult to cook with. The settings are really hot, so it cooks way hotter than it should. Matter of fact, I've actually ordered a standalone thermometer to put in there so that I know exactly how hot it is. Even when I have it set on conventional, it has a little bit of a fan running, and it works halfway like a convection and halfway convention. Everything cooks really, really fast, and there are no windows, so I can't keep an eye on things to see how they look as they're cooking. And I baked this cookie, and my recipe from my Mema has no temperature and no time settings on it, so I was just experimenting. It had only been in there a few minutes, and all of a sudden I smelled something burning, and the top layer looked like a piece of charcoal, but the rest of the cookie was amazing. So I'm excited to make it a second time and to see how it turns out. So I have my oven set at 300, which is going to be about 350, and I would, if you were making these as regular cookies, not a skillet cookie, I would say 350 for about 8 minutes. 10 if you like your oatmeal cookies a little crunchier. For this recipe and doing it in the skillet, I'm going to check it at 15 minutes, and then I'm going to check it every 5 minutes because it just got way too done way too fast the first time I did this. Okay, so we look like cookie dough now. If you can see that, it has that same consistency of like peanut butter cookie dough, and all of the yummy extras are mixed in really well. So I'm gonna get my skillet, and I'm gonna put this dough in there. Scrape all the extras out of the pan. And since my hand is already quite messy, I'm just going to use it to flatten this out. Right. The one good thing about messing up the first recipe is that I had to run back to the store to get some more pecans. And when I did, I picked up some Bluebell homemade vanilla ice cream to go on top of this cookie, which is gonna be pretty perfect. All right, I think that is looking pretty nice. I've got it nice and flat in the pan. I'm gonna tuck this in the oven. Like I said, I have my oven, it's set again halfway between convention and convection, but convection oven you're gonna go 300, traditional oven you're gonna go 350. If you're doing drop cookies, about 8 to 10 minutes. In the skillet, I'm gonna start at 15 and I'll let you know how it goes. "25 minutes turned out to be the perfect amount of baking time. I let my skillet sit for about an hour just to cool down before I sliced it. And you can cut any pattern you want. I did these little diamonds. You can do 8ths or 12ths or 16ths like a pie. However you want to is great. I have added a scoop and a half of vanilla ice cream, and I'm pretty fired up to dig in. You can see just in the pattern of the cookie, all the amazing ingredients in there. My ice cream is melting because my plate is warm. That's incredible. It's exactly how I remember it from my childhood. And it's such an easy but memorable recipe. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.